to my channel. If you're new, my name's Landry, and I have started a new series on here where I am talking all things Best Medicine as a Doc Martin fan. I'm giving my interpretations of Best Medicine as a regular viewer, sharing my thoughts and recaps of the show, of the recent episode, and then diving on later in the video my thoughts as a Doc Martin fan. So if you're new, welcome, and if you haven't seen episode 1 of me telling my opinions about episode 1 of Best Medicine, feel free to check that out before watching this one. Also, want to make a disclaimer. If you have not watched Best Medicine yet, and you're wanting to, please do not watch this video. There are huge spoilers in this video, and I don't want to be the one that ruins it for you. So please get off here and watch the show if you're wanting to before coming back on here and watching my little segment. But if you're here and you've already watched, boy, has it been a funny episode and another fun one. So let's dig in. So let's do a little recap of last week. Last week we meet Martin Best. Doesn't really have good bedside manner. He's offended most of his patients. They've ran off. We get to meet Aunt Sarah. He stayed with her as a child. We get to meet Mark Milo, the sheriff. Him and Louisa had a relationship. They were going to get married. Louisa breaks it off. Martin sees Louisa for the first time in the coffee shop. Kind of offends her. Because he kept looking at her weird. Turns out he thought that she had something wrong with her eye, and she did. He told her to go to the doctor. He thought she had glaucoma. And he ended up saving her life there because she had early stages of it. We get to meet Greg and George and Brisket from the Salty Breeze, which I love Brisket. Brisket the pig. One of my favorites. And we met Elaine the receptionist. I wasn't really keen of her. Like, I had a love-hate situation. Didn't like that she was on her phone all the time, not helping him. She had a bad first impression on him, and yet he ends up firing her. But at the end, his blood phobia. We find out he has a blood phobia. He has an issue with blood, and at the end, she goes and helps him, and kind of puts a bug in his ear about, hey, if you stay, I used to help the old doctor with blood work and stuff. So I'm curious to see. Let's see, as we get and talk about episode 2, did she stay or did she stay fired? And also the fact that at the end of the show, we still need to know who Rosemary is. We don't know who Rosemary is yet. We kind of gather it was somebody important in Martin's life because at the end, there's a picture of 2 people, 2 little kids in a picture, and he puts it on the end table. So it makes me think that, yes, she was either his sister or something. So let's dive into episode 2. So yes, Elaine is back. Shocker, shocker. Figured he was going to hire her back when he found out that she could help with the blood issues. And I was really excited. I was like, Elaine's made a turning point. She's gonna she's gonna quit doing the annoying things of her social media when she's at work, and she's actually going to help Martin. And of course, no, that's not the case, because goes right on, and what's she doing? She's on her phone again. He's getting ready to have his first patient, and of course it's Mark, the sheriff, and that was a whole thing. The sheriff says he's dealing with grief, but his heart has been broken. He was going to get married, and that isn't happening. So he's going through a lot right now. I feel so bad for him, but at the same time, he's going in the wrong direction. He wants to go get a prescription so that he wants to be with as many women as he can be with. He doesn't care. He says he's hurt. He's done being the nice guy, and of course the doc does not care. He could care less about small talk. He's like wanting him to leave, but he's pouring out his heart and soul because he thinks him and Martin are best buds, and he's pouring out his heart and soul, and Martin's not having it. Martin's like, get out. So that was funny. We had that whole thing of right off the bat that we can tell that the sheriff, Mark, is still hurting, and I do feel bad for him, and it was so funny, the whole a thing. One of my favorite things was Mark says, "There's a new sheriff in town. Um, ladies take a number," and then he said, "There's a new sheriff in town," and Doc's like, "Good. I wasn't or that's good. I wasn't fond of the first one," or something like that. And Mark thinks it's a joke, and he just starts laughing. And I was like, "That's not a joke, buddy. That's a hint that Doc does not care about your personal life right now. He just wants to see his patients." And then that's when we realize that Elaine has went back to her old ways. She's filming a show, and she has she has the patients in the waiting room playing a spoon game. And at that point, I'm like, she clearly did not learn. Like, what is going on? Yes, it's entertaining, but at the same time, I'm thinking there was so many people in that waiting room. How many of them were actually patients, or were half of them not, and they were taking up space by being part of her little game show? And you could tell right away Martin was not happy. He got annoyed. He told them to take the spoons off their noses, and he's like, "You need to quit this. This is a doctor's office, not a game show place." And you could tell he's getting really annoyed. And then here we go. Issues with the blood phobia again. Who comes running in? Bert and Al. Bert had cut his arm, or his hand, and blood was like pouring everywhere. That was gross. No blood. I do not do blood. And of course, Elaine was like, it's the way she did it though. She immediately in front of everybody was like, "Hey, do you need any help?" And obviously he's not happy that she knows about his phobia, but he certainly doesn't want the town to know he has a phobia. And obviously he's going to say no. It's just the way that she did it. She could have kind of pulled him aside in private and asked him if he needed help, but it's the way she just came out in the public and asked. I was like, he's not going to say yes. That was just dumb on your part, pretty much. So he obviously, you can tell, has a problem because he knocks all the prescription bottles down and he's about to throw up. And he was like, he is not going to get through this. He's going to end up passing out like he did at the grocery store. He's not going to be able to stitch Bert's hand. It's just no go. Thankfully, whenever he hit the prescription things and made a sound and scene, Elaine steps in and helps him. And I was like, yeah, this is not going to work out, but if she's going to be his helper, she needs to quit being obvious that he has a problem. Whether the people notice it or not, it's still making him feel like she's outing his problem to the world, pretty much. So, and you can tell that he still doesn't want to do small talk because he gets mad at Al because Al's trying to talk to Elaine, wanting her to go to the baked bean supper, and she doesn't want to go, and she kind of tells him that she's thinking about leaving Port Wynn, and, he kind of gets upset because you can tell that he's wanting to be in a relationship with her, but she's just not wanting it. It sounds like she just wants to be social media star, and that's all she cares about. And you can tell Martin's getting annoyed. He's like, "No small talk, get out." And it's just so funny to me. And the little comment at the end was a little unnecessary, I felt, when she says, when they stitch him up, she says, "See, I can be a help or whatever." And he kind of was like, "Yeah, but get out." Like, he's, at this point, I think he's annoyed because she's making his blood phobia, she's basically saying it without saying it. "I know something about you that nobody else knows, so I'm going to help you," so to speak. And you could tell he was kind of getting annoyed. But yeah, that was kind of funny, the whole thing. And it just went boom, boom, boom. His first patient or major thing was Bert's hand. And then we kind of get back to the credits thing. Like I said in the first reaction video to the first episode, I'm in love with the credits. The beginning of the show, I love the music. I love the pan around showing Port Wynn, Maine. It's beautiful. And I still think it's funny about the whole dog situation. This dog has became friends with Martin, whether he likes it or not. And then we get to the big plot, big situation that is the new the big situation, I guess is what I'm trying to say. the whole thing about the brown-tailed moth. Everybody's coming in with symptoms. It starts out with Peter Cronk, which is funny because Peter Cronk was in the first episode, the boy with the cut knee, and the mom shows the blood, and I cringed about that. I was like, why on earth did you do that? But he comes in with symptoms, and he seems like a pretty smart boy. He's very knowledgeable, and of course Martin doesn't appreciate them trying to do his job for him. He wants to examine him and all that, and he's like, oh, it's just a brown-tailed moth, no big deal, everybody gets it every year. But yet there's still more things to it, because apparently he has a cough and other symptoms that they are saying is not part of the brown-tailed moth symptoms. So clearly something's going on there. But right off the bat, Dr. Best's bedside manner isn't that great, so he's already kind of annoyed. So we have our first case of the brown-tailed moth, and of course the whole thing, he makes the mom upset because he says that Peter needs to stay home from school, and mom can't do that. She has a job, she needs to do this, so of course he offends them because he says that he needs to stay out of school, or he's going to spread the whatever. And so of course they storm out, and once again Elaine's like, what's your deal, doc? Why are you making your patients upset? And it's like, yes, he was a little harsh the way he delivers, but at the same time he's trying to help y'all out. Why don't you listen to him? He knows what he's talking about. And then we go to the Salty Breeze, and that was sweet how Louisa was just having a conversation with Martin, and they're telling him about the baked bean supper because George comes in, and they're like, you're coming, we need your RSVP, and they think that he's joking because he says he's not going to the baked bean supper, and they're like, everybody goes to the baked bean supper, and they were like laughing about it, and then realize he's not joking, he's not going to go to that baked bean supper. And then, Louisa's trying to have a conversation with him, and then Mark's on the tariff with, it turns out to be Louisa's teacher's assistant, and turns out Mark's into her, and George is trying to hide the fact from Louisa because he doesn't want her to be upset. And then, Louisa kind of, poor Martin's always in the situation where he falls or something, she trips on his chair, makes him fall backward, and it was kind of a moment where you could tell that she kind of likes him in a way, because it looked like they were going to kiss, and I was like, really? They just got to, they're not even knowing each other yet. Are they really going to kiss? And it turns out no. It was just a little sneak peek of maybe Martin and Louisa have a little chemistry. We'll see. So that was fun, and we got to see a little bit more of George in the Salty Breeze, and it's just like, it just cuts to that, because after that Louisa storms out and is back to Martin in the doctor's office. And then next patient has the same exact thing. Turns out the girl is in the same class as Peter, so in his mind Peter spread the virus or whatever to this girl, and has probably spread it to everybody else in the school. So he's not happy about that. And then the unprofessionalism, he was not happy when he was asking the parent and the girl about their symptoms, about the girl's symptoms. And it's one thing for the kid to act like this, but the parent acting like this was a little bit too much, because Martin was not having it. She's like, yeah, she basically has diarrhea, but she says, I have the squirts, and it just goes, and they're like making noises, and he's not happy, and it's like, he's like, you could tell he's like, are you kidding me? I get paid to deal with people like this. And I kind of was like, it was funny. I laughed at the joke, because who doesn't like a good joke like that? But at the same time, I was like, yeah, it's a little too much. The parent could be a little bit more professional, but that's just my opinion. And then he goes to the school, and he has a little bit of talk with Louisa, and he's mad because Peter Cronk's there, and, now Louisa's saying it's just the brown-tailed moth, and, it kind of makes Martin mad, because he doesn't think it's the brown-tailed moth, but nobody will listen to him, and he kind of gets, aggravated. Then we learn later that Bert seems more than just an accidentally cut. Bert is having dizzy problems because he's using a power tool pruning bushes, and next thing you know, he about passes out because of whatever, and it turns out I didn't really understand. It sounded like he has something wrong with him where he's getting dizzy really easily, but it doesn't sound like it's too much of a problem because Doc is like, go to the pharmacist and get your prescription, take the medicine, and you'll be fine. So it doesn't sound like it's that bad, but he is getting on to Bert because Bert didn't tell him when he walked in that is why he cut himself, and he's so upset because he didn't tell him everything. But at the same time, I understand Bert's perspective. He's the father to Al. He doesn't want his son worried about him. So that's why he would hold back information. But then, of course, he makes this thing about, I can't quit working like everybody else. And, the doc's annoyed. And he's like, well, that's fine. Use power tools and you'll be fine. It's so okay to have a medical condition and pass out while using power tools. And he thinks that he's being serious, but clearly Doc is being sarcastic. So that was a whole funny situation. And we meet the bully that calls Martin Eeyore, which that guy was getting on my nerves. He got on my nerves from the beginning. I was like, what is it with people being so rude? Like, why is he being so rude? And clearly it was annoying Martin, and Martin was like, I don't know you. And I was like, well, just go on. And he was like, all about, I'm just big, successful person that did this and that, and I'm in charge of the baked bean supper, and da-da-da-da. And I was like, good for you, buddy. Like, I was not happy with this character. And Glendon, I was not happy with that character. And I was happy that Martin just kept walking. And then more cases of the black-tailed moth arise. The whole waiting room is full of people sick. And, of course, I mean, we're all sick with something, but let's just play Chubby Bunny in the doctor's office waiting room. I mean, that's fine, right? Martin walks in, he's not happy because this is going on, and he's like asking how many people have these symptoms. And of course, every single person in the waiting room raises their hand, and he's like, that's it, the baked bean supper is canceled. And of course, everybody gets mad at him because this baked bean supper is something that is very important to them. And I can kind of relate to that. I live in a place that is small, not as small as this, like I don't know everybody around me, but my church used to have this barbecue supper thing that we would do for fundraising to help fundraise, whether it be for our youth or for Angel Tree or just something for our church to raise money. And I used to like to go to our barbecue dinners. It was always fun to be around. It was on Saturday nights, and it was always fun to be around your church. All the members of your church. So I can kind of relate to why they would be excited about their baked bean supper. But, Martin just doesn't seem to get it, because he's like, every month. He thought it was every year, or once a year or whatever. And no, it's every month. And then he's like, why on earth are you so obsessed with the baked bean supper kind of thing? And, they explain that guy has a heartfelt thing. He's like, it's a time where you don't worry about what's going on. It's a time to come together, and the town agrees. But then Martin's like, nope, we're canceling the baked bean supper. No, we're not getting sick. And then everybody gets mad at him. Which, in a way, I would probably be upset with him too. He just literally canceled our community thing. But at the same time, he's just doing what he thinks is best for the town, whether they realize it or not. He doesn't care. In his mind, he is protecting the citizens of the town he lives in from getting sick. But they don't see it that way. They're upset with him. And, it was funny at the end, when he closes the door, they all start throwing marshmallows out the door, which I thought was so funny. And then, of course, you can't do that to a small town. He goes to visit his Aunt Sarah. She gets mad at him because he canceled the baked bean supper. He thinks that he just doesn't understand why they would be so obsessed with this baked bean supper. And she kind of explains to him that she loves the bread that George makes every month. He only makes it then. You get to be with friends and family, like talking and stuff. He just doesn't understand it, I don't think. You can tell. And he invites her to have a supper with him, and she declines because she's mad at him. And I just thought that was so funny. I was like, he's like, not you too. Like, he just doesn't understand that this is a big deal to them. He's not used to the fact that events like this happen. And of course, Glendon, Aunt Sarah says, oh, you've met him, and he gets into details about how Glendon was a bully, and he tells her not to worry about it. And the thing about the girl saying, my mom says you're the, basically said that he was a bad word, so to speak. She said, my mom said you're the A word, the B word, and the F word, and the A word, the F word. And I'm like, poor Martin. He's just trying to help them out, and they don't appreciate it. Yes, he has bad bedside manner, as I've said before, but I just feel bad for him. He's trying. And then let's see what else goes on. Oh, he goes back to the doctor's office. Everybody's canceled their appointments in protest. Elaine's making a big to-do about it. Al comes to visit Elaine. And the doc was like, I'm right. He tells Elaine to hurry up the blood tests to prove that he's right because he knows it's not the brown-tailed moth. Al comes, tells Elaine that he wants to help her further her career, whether it be be her cameraman. She still doesn't seem like she wants it. She's saying that she doesn't want to be with anybody, that her career comes first, but he's just trying his best to win her over. He invited her to the dinner. She doesn't want to come. So she tells him she's leaving Port Wynn, and it's just a whole thing. He really wants to be more than just friends, I can tell, but she's just not having it. And then, of course, the whole thing where Doc comes out and he's like, did you call the lab? And of course he's like, you don't, and he gets mad. He immediately is like, get out, don't care about you protesting about the baked bean supper. And so that was fun. And let's fast forward. We do find out that let's see what else. Oh, the dog comes into the doctor's office, and he's rolling around on the floor, and Elaine starts to play with him, and Doc is like, how long has he been doing that? And she told him, and he's like, well, there's something wrong, and he immediately, like, gets his gloves, and I was like, what is he gonna do? Is he, like, done with this dog, and he's just gonna, like, throw it out because he was upset that Elaine wasn't telling it to go out of the doctor's office? But it turns out he's seeing if it had the same rash, and it does have the same rash. So now it seems like the dog is the culprit for spreading the rash. So obviously it does prove that it is not the brown-tailed moth. And so then he takes it to Mark, and then he tells him that animal control is going to come get the dog. Don't touch the dog. It's very contagious. And then the lab, while this is all going on, the lab does call and confirm that it is not the brown-tailed moth, which I guess is good for the town because they can have their baked bean supper. And then, Louisa comes up and wants to talk to Mark, and there's a whole thing. Doc is once again in an awkward situation where he doesn't want to be in the conversation, but they are making it in his conversation because he makes the comment, why do people think it's okay to have private conversations not in private? Because Mark is like telling Louisa wants Mark to be nice because he hurt her assistant's feelings, and says this is not you. And he's like, I'm done being the nice guy, you're the mean one. And like the whole thing about he wants her to leave, he says leave, but he won't look at her. He's looking at Martin thinks he's talking about him, and he's like, I am trying to leave, you need to sign this paper. It was a whole situation, and I was like, Martin's in the awkward situation once again. I feel bad for him, but at the same time it's funny because he just seems to come at the wrong place at the wrong time because he's always in somebody's conversation, whether he wants to be or not. And has to have an opinion whether he wants to or not. And so Mark takes the dog, and you think that everything's over with. Then Louisa starts forming her rash, goes to see Martin. Martin then asks her when she came in contact with the dog. She didn't come in contact with the dog, and that was a whole thing. And then she, of course, tells him that she wants to go to the baked bean supper, but she's not going because Mark doesn't want her to go. And then she, tries to ask Martin to go, but then he immediately gets awkward and he doesn't want to go. So then she says she just said it, but really and truly, I think she really did want him to go with her. But at the same time, she was just making small talk, and he didn't realize it was a joke, and that was a whole awkward thing too. With him, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't take it as a joke. Yeah, my bad. And it was just all awkward, and I was like, yeah, I'm just curious to see if they do become interested in each other. And then, let's see, he does find out she didn't come in contact with the dog, so now we have a situation. What is spreading the virus? How are they getting it? Because it's not the brown-tailed moth, and it doesn't seem like the dog is giving it to them. So then the next thing is he goes to the Salty Breeze and had to examine Brisket the pig. And I was like, oh no, I hope Brisket's not the culprit, because then we'd have to get rid of Brisket. And I love Brisket, the piggy. So thank goodness Brisket did not have the rash and was not spreading the rash. And then I love the part where George and Greg are talking about how despite what rumors are, pigs are the most sanitary animals there are. And George says, and I would eat off of her if that's how clean. And Doc's like, please don't. And I just thought that was funny because, if you didn't pay attention, you wouldn't get the comedy part of it. And it was just so funny. So thank goodness Brisket is not the culprit. But then we find out that the only other thing going around in Port Wynne besides the baked bean supper is Glendon's renovations. So it turns out we know Glendon wants to have an in-ground pool or whatever. So people are coming over. At the clip when he was bullying Martin, calling him Eeyore, we saw kids in the yard digging, and we saw the dog in there digging. And so what does Martin do? He's Martin. He goes to the swimming pool site and starts digging and finds dead mice, which is disgusting. Of course, Glendon finds him and he's like, you're a trespasser, and da-da-da-da-da. And he's just, being the bully he is, still to this day, doesn't like that Martin is there. And Martin doesn't care. He's like, I'm testing these, and he's out. So then we go to the move on, and then we do find out that Glendon's dead mice situation is what was causing the virus. So it wasn't the dog's fault. It wasn't the brown-tailed moth. Now we know the cause, and we're able to treat the patients. And then we finally get to meet Sally the pharmacist, Sally Milo. She's a character, isn't she? We only got to see her that small clip, but she's something else. And the funny thing is, she is Mark Milo's mom, the sheriff's mom, and I can see a connection. The way they act is pretty spot on. So yeah, I'm curious to see how Sally's character becomes a part of this town as we go later on, keep going on in the episodes. Martin doesn't seem too impressed with her. I mean, she says she's another medical professional. He appreciates her, but she wants to have small talk, and he's not about that. He just wants to, I need you to fill this prescription, have these on hand, and just be prepared. He doesn't care about personal details. He's straight to business, as she says. And of course, she has the neck brace, and he's like, do you have, is there something I need to know? And of course, she's like, it has a story. Maybe we could talk about it over a bottle of wine. And he's like, yeah, that's too much, Miss Milo. And she's like, thanks for letting me know. And I was like, yeah, this is going to be interesting. She's a very interesting character. This fact that she says, I tend to overshare things and get a little bit too enthusiastic. And he's like, yeah, you're spot on about that. So we met her, and then, of course, we find out that Bert did not fill his prescription, like he did not quit working, like the doc told him to, and that could have been a scary situation. Bert almost got in a wreck. If Martin wouldn't have been there when he got behind the wheel and passed out, Bert might have had a bad accident, so we didn't really see much more of that other than Martin saving him from that and pulls him out of the truck or the van. So I'm sure that's going to be an ongoing thing about Bert's little fainting issue. Hopefully he went to the pharmacist and got his prescription this time. Baked bean supper's back. Martin's not going. We don't know if Louise is going. It doesn't seem like she's going because Mark didn't want her to go. So he's getting ready. Martin's getting ready to fix supper. Aunt Sarah comes. She's like, "You're going to the baked bean supper. I don't care what you say." He's upset with her because she's dragging him to this event. But her perspective is he's a member of the community now. If he doesn't want people to, he doesn't care if they think they don't like him or not. He just wants to be the doctor, diagnose them, fix their problems, like medical problems. He doesn't want to be friends. He doesn't want to get to know them. And in her perspective, he needs to go to these community events so that he can get to know them and they will be less rough on him. So she finally drags him. He's going to the baked bean supper. And I love this part where Louisa, I'm guessing she's in the school, or is she in her home and grading papers? Regardless, she's there home alone, grading papers. She's not going to the baked bean supper because Mark doesn't want her to. And they're walking by and Martin's just staring, you know? And I'm like, is he going to say anything? Like, because in the first episode, he did the same thing. He walked by and couldn't help but keep staring at her through the window. And she didn't know he was staring at her through the window when she was putting the eye drops in and stuff like that. Finally, he stops when Aunt Sarah's talking to him, and he goes and he yells at her through the window. She opens the window, and he's like, "If I gotta go to this ridiculous thing, you got to go too." And immediately she's like excited, like happy because he's inviting her. And then Martin being Martin, it couldn't keep a soft, loving moment. He had to look at his watch and say, "You have 5 minutes and we're leaving." We had to put that twist in it because how Martin is. And of course you have Aunt Sarah. She's standing there and she's smiling because she's happy that Martin's finally talking to people, and he doesn't understand what her problem is. He's like, "What?" And she's like, "Oh, nothing." She's just happy that he's starting to interact with people. And they get to the baked bean supper, and then that was fun. You got to see everybody, all the people in the town coming together, having a great time. And then who shows up? Mr. Glendon the bully. And Glendon the bully, it was just not necessary. He got mad because Martin shut down his project because of the mice situation, which, good, because he was causing the town to get sick. And so his way of responding was he was going to cancel the baked bean supper. And of course, Martin being Martin's like, "Well, all you did was donate beans. It's not like you did anything else." And he was standing up for the town for once. And Glendon's like, "Well, I don't care. I'm shutting it down." And finally, everybody else chimed in. Aunt Sarah was like, "It's about time somebody said something to you. You're a jerk," blah, 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 blah. And everybody else pitched in and was like, "Yeah, we'll have our own baked bean supper without you. We'll pitch in. We don't have to listen to you anymore." And so they all kind of got rid of Glendon, I hope. And he, of course, Martin leaves, and I was like, man, I was really hoping he would get to talk to Louisa more, but he's leaving because of the whole situation. He's embarrassed, but Louisa knocks on the door and had brought a to-go plate. And the closing scene of episode 2, I really enjoyed, because you have Martin and Louisa sitting in Martin's kitchen eating the baked bean supper. Martin has fallen in love with the baked bean supper, and he just starts talking to Louisa more connecting with her. He brings up, because she brings up, "Why is Glendon such a jerk to you? What happened?" And Martin was hesitant. He didn't want to tell her. And then he kind of backs off and he's like, "Yeah, well, I came here as a child when I was younger, and Glendon was a bully to me." And he kind of starts unraveling. We learned that Rosemary was his sister. that died in a car accident. She was only 8. He was younger, so it sounds like it was an older sister. She died in a car accident. The parents, so they would grieve, kind of sent him back to stay with Aunt Sarah while they were grieving because they were upset. So that's why he was in Portland. So he was having a hard time. He had lost his sister, and this bully comes along and starts giving him a more hard time. And I thought, oh, he's gonna come clean. He's gonna just tell her everything. Because he tells her about the surgery, why he left being a surgeon because of the whole situation. And I thought, oh, he's going to tell her about the blood phobia, but he doesn't. She said, so why did you quit being a surgeon? When he told her, he said, I decided I needed a quieter life. That's why I moved back here. So he was this close to telling her the real thing, but he just didn't do it yet. And I'm hoping that maybe in the future he confesses to her, talks to her. Because it seems like he feels like that he can trust her enough to tell her these valuable things, like things he doesn't want to share with other people. So that was fun to get that little side of things. I was so happy to see the ending of him actually talking to Louisa. He's talking to somebody. And that was the end of season 2. We got our baked bean supper at the end. We find out that Glendon's the cause of the rash, not the brown-tailed moth. And of course, the funny thing is, it wouldn't be a best medicine without the dog running into the house in the end, which is super funny. Ran through the window. And another thing, we need to back up to the part where Mark is in charge of the dog, and he supposed to be waiting for animal control. Animal control never shows up. He starts to get worried about the dog. He calls a vet. The vet says it's going to be $400 some to see the dog, treat the dog. So he goes to the doc, and he pretends to have caught the brown-tailed moth rash. And Doc catches on that the rash is fake. He peels it off, and he's like, this is this is an offense. It's illegal to do this. I can't do this legally because Mark says, it's the same medicine. And Martin's like, Martin says, I've never done this in my life, and I'm not going to do it again. And he ends up writing a prescription for the dog. Says take half, so he ends up writing the prescription for the dog to have medicine. And of course Mark says at the end, and I'll bring the dog back. And immediately Martin, you can tell, has regretted his decision because he doesn't want that dog nowhere near him. But it seems like this dog is going to be a part of him whether he likes it or not. And of course, the funny thing is, going back to the first episode, I said Mark reminds me of Barney Fife from Andy Griffith, the way he acts. Once again, Mark had the doors open, the jail cell open, gives the dog the medicine, and the dog immediately runs away. And he makes the response, my first prisoner, my only and first prisoner, and I let you get away. And I was like, oh boy, this is going to be fun. So yeah, now that we've talked about everything of Best Medicine Episode 2, let me kind of share what I liked and everything. So obviously I like the chemistry between Louisa and Martin, Dr. Best. Seems like he is starting to like her more. He's coming more and more. Feels like he can tell her things that he wouldn't tell anybody else. Of course, his relationship with Aunt Sarah, her getting him to go to the baked bean supper. I really enjoyed that. Mark being Mark, the sheriff, he's still funny. I'm excited to see his character grow. George and Greg, once again, didn't get to see them much. But from what I got to see of George, I'm excited to see those characters more and more. Elaine, I'm hoping, starts to do her job more and doesn't let her social media becoming a social media star affect her job again. making him want to fire her, because I honestly think that she could be a good help to him because of his blood phobia. But yeah, I'm hoping that, and can't wait to see more Brisket the pig and more of Sally Mallow the chemist or pharmacist, to see her character more, because we only got to see a snippet. And I think that's everybody. So yeah, hope you enjoyed my little recap of Best Medicine Season 1, Episode 2. And obviously today is Tuesday when I'm filming this, so Episode 3 is dropping tonight, so I will be making a reaction video tomorrow. So stay tuned for that. And yeah, if you are a Doc Martin fan like myself and you're curious to see my opinions of this episode corresponding to Doc Martin the original, stay tuned and we'll dig into that. If you have not watched Doc Martin before and you are just watching Best Medicine, please skip this part if you don't want any spoilers. Dive into Doc Martin and then come back and join us as we do a little discussion. But until then, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you for another Best Medicine reenactment commentary video soon. So hello everyone, if you've made it this far into the video, or if you skipped ahead to this part, we made it through Best Medicine Season 1, Episode 2. It finally came. I was super excited. I rewatched this episode 3 times. I watched it from the beginning, watched it the first time when it first came, and then watched it 2 more times. Didn't get around to a 4th time, but I'm curious. What is my fellow Doc Martin fans thinking about this new remake? I got to say that this go-round was a little bit better than the first episode, meaning the copycat part of it. You know, the first episode was the same exact thing happened in the original as in our version, so it was kind of annoying. I already knew what was going to happen in perspectives of the medical sense of things. Now, this week's episode did have a similar occurrence in Series 2, Episode 2 of Doc Martin. I looked it up. If you remember in Doc Martin on Series 2, Episode 2, this is the episode where Peter Cronk's mom has the little accident in the restaurant, and everybody's coming down with this rash. I think it was called Vendigo, something like that. Anyway, it turns out that the dog was spreading it or whatever, or something like that. And Peter was staying with Doc Martin, because Louisa was going through some things and didn't want him around, or like she was busy, she couldn't watch him, so he ended up staying with Doc whether Doc wanted him to or not. And then they later realize he gets the rash, and they realize that it's stemmed from the dog. And so it was a little bit similar in that case, because in Best Medicine, we wondered, they first said it was from the brown-tailed moth, and then the dog got it, and I was like, oh, maybe the dog is spreading it. But in that case, it was not the dog. The dog got it from the same place. It turned out to be the dead mice in Glendon's swimming pool site, or building site, which was Glendon. I did not like him whatsoever. He was annoying. But, yeah, so in regards of the medical mystery, it was, same idea, but it wasn't a copycat, so we got to play along what is causing this. Let's talk about Martin and Louisa. Their chemistry is growing. I think it's growing about the same pace as it did in Doc Martin, the original. I love that he, ended up telling her that he has, had a sister, and tells her why he moved to Port Wynne, why Glendon was a bully. He was hesitant at first, but he does end up sharing more than I think he would to anyone else. I don't even think he shared that much with Aunt Sarah. Seems like Louisa is somebody he can trust and talk to, he feels. he did leave out the blood phobia part, but I don't know. Part of me feels like he will share that with her in the future. So I'm curious to see where that goes. Aunt Sarah, I love the whole thing with him and her. She's the one that made him go to the baked bean supper and everything. I can tell that she's just wanting him to get to know the community more and be a part of the community more. So I'm really excited about that. I think she kind of is like Aunt Joan in a way. You know, Aunt Joan was the same way, trying to get him to do more with the town, be a part of the town. Don't be an outsider, so to speak. So I'm excited about her character. Mark Milo, same funny person. And, you know, the whole thing about the dog. He loses the dog. He tries to get the prescription for the dog because he can't afford the vet. And that was a thing. You can tell Martin Best is not as strict as Martin Elliam. Martin Elliam would have never gave him a prescription for the dog. No, sirree. He would rather have the dog be put down than say rescued, because, you know, at a point later on in the series, Buddy, he even tries to put Buddy down himself because nobody would take Buddy and get rid of him. And Louisa had to stop him. So, yeah, that's a little bit different. You can tell that Martin Best has a little bit more friendly matter to him than Elliam did, because he did give a prescription to help the dog out. Now, he did kind of regret it at the end because Mark said, I'll bring the dog back to you when he's better. And Martin was like, no, don't do that. But, you know, that was fun. And then you have Elaine. This Elaine on our series is, I think, a little bit more annoying to the doc than Elaine on the original. Elaine on the original, yeah, she didn't listen to him. She was on the phone all the time. But I think she did a little bit more than Elaine on our series is doing. Right now, our Elaine is on her phone constantly. She started her game show back. Her social media thing back, turned it into a game show, is getting the patients involved, making Martin annoyed, and it was a whole thing. So I was a little disappointed in that. I thought she would be better since she offered to help him with the blood phobia by being the medical assistant, by taking blood work and stuff. But right now it looks like she's went back to her old self. And let's see. Is there any... Oh, we got to meet Sally Milo, the chemist, which she is pretty much as crazy as Sally Tishel, Mrs. Tishel on the original, wouldn't you say? She's got that neck brace. She's got an obvious crush on Martin, I would say. She has that demeanor. I'm a medical professional too, and she wants to get to know him and wants to have a drink wine with him to let him know things, and he's like, I'm good with that. Like, he does not want to. So I'm curious to see if it will be like the original, if Sally Milo, Mark's mom, tries to fall for the doc and get the doc to fall for her. So we'll see about that. I do think it's interesting that our version decided to make her the mom of the sheriff instead of a totally different character like Sally Tishel. So that's interesting. I'm curious about, is Sally Milo still married to Mark's mom or Mark's dad? Did something happen to Mark's dad? I'm a little curious about that. And of course we learn more about Rosemary. Who is Rosemary? It was Martin's sister. She was 8 years old, died in a car accident. They were both in the car accident. And his parents sent him to Aunt Sarah's when that happened. So, of course, in the original, to my knowledge, we don't really know why Martin was sent to Aunt Jones as a child. All we know is that Martin Elliam, the original Doc Martin's parents, did not love him. They thought he was basically a mistake, so they wanted alone time, and they got rid of him by sending him to her farm. So I'm curious to see if that's like the same situation. It's two different storylines. It's parents unwanting him, whereas on Best Medicine, the parents lost another child. So we'll see how that plays along. So yeah, my thoughts as we wrap this up. I feel that they did a good job steering away from copying the original to where we knew exactly what was happening. They did a good job of taking ideas, but it was fun because it was a little bit different. We had a baked bean supper where it was not quite the same as the fare on the original, so that was fun. The characters are fun. We're getting to know them more and more, and they're kind of taking the idea of making the characters like the original characters, but they've went on their way of making them their own, so to speak. And I'm really excited because if you do not know, Martin Clunes, who played the original Doc Martin, is actually going to make a cameo appearance this season. And I saw a clip of him as the dad to Martin Best. So we get to see him, not as our original Doc Martin, but still get to see him on screen again in a reunion, so to speak. And I'm excited about that. Do I wish that they will make a movie or something with the original cast of Doc Martin, like do a little reunion show or something? Yes, I would love that. But right now, if he's going to be a part of Best Medicine, I'm super excited to see that. And I think that's coming up in a few episodes later. I'm not totally sure. We will see. But yeah, that is my thoughts on Best Medicine Season 1, Episode 2. As a Doc Martin fan, I hope you enjoyed this. And if you have any opinions or something that you think I could have talked about, please leave a comment down below. I'm curious to see your thoughts. And I can't wait to watch Season 1, Episode 3 tonight to do a reaction video tomorrow. I'm gonna film tomorrow. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you stuck around to the end, I appreciate it. And I will see you for a reaction to Season 1, Episode 3 very soon. Take care.
Whoa, whoa.